Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show. Tonight, my guest is currently in the midst of his second series of his Radio 4 show, Benefit Scum, as well as we speak, being at the Edinburgh Fringe with his new show, Trash Rich, and his maiden name as the voice of the common man, struggling in a world which is hit by hard times. If only there was more material to be had out of that right now. Please welcome back to this Dr. Squee show for a second appearance, Tom Mayhew. Tom, how are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you, mate. I'm very, very well. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And thankfully you're back in your house after almost getting locked out before the interview.
That's the joys of Edinburgh. Literally, I was rushing around, going, "Oh God, I need to get in." I got this quietly, and I was literally looking where I could record it, and then I was like, "Oh, that's just literally pure luck that I managed to get in safe." And I'm back in this my Edinburgh flat. There's a picture behind me, and this picture on the. I'd show you this one because this is think of that.
Okay, and for the benefit of anyone listening to this on radio tomorrow, it appears to be, I can't tell the gender, maybe non-binary, but there is a person falling from the sky, I think from what I'm seeing, with their legs up in the air, and basically their bums facing us, with maybe the sun behind them. That's interesting. That's interesting art.
That's so literally as you go to sleep, you could just stare at that.
Well, I should have guessed that was there to get you in the mood.
Oh, always, yeah. How can?
It's so bizarre. So, like, how is it? How's everything going up in Edinburgh? It looks like a quite a nice flat, which I know you don't always get the most bang for your buck in Edinburgh around fringe time.
Yeah, no, it's quite nice. I think we're quite lucky with this place. Literally, it's someone that's fairly quiet, someone that's near the meadow. That's kind of quite a quiet area. That's near the hubbub of all the central exciting stuff, but it's quite close to that. But also, it's not too loud, which is nice. And nothing's gone wrong in the flat so far. That's that case in Edinburgh. Delighted because there's always stuff that goes wrong. We did turn up and they'd left a note out for us on the table that said, like, "Hello, sorry, there's a big stain that's just appeared." And there's a big stain on the wall, and I was like, I don't know how that appears. Literally a bizarre.
I was going to say, those stains which just appear.
Yeah, they just went, "Hello, sorry, it's a stain that's just appeared. Sad face. Enjoy your stay."
Had they drawn the sad face into the stain?
I would have enjoyed that if the personality, that'd be beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little bit gross, but at least they've been imaginative with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've made us warm to it a bit more, so that's what you want.
So, is this your second or third fringe? How
It's
many have you done now?
my third solo show. In terms of doing full runs, maybe 16, 17. The fifth full run at the Fringe. The first time I'm doing the show, just me.
Wow. So what shows were you part of previously? Was it plays and things like that?
No, I did a two-hand stand-up show with Adele Cliff, where we would basically 20 minutes each and then get a guest to do the 10-minute spot. And that was our first ever Edinburgh run. And that was in a little marquee it was in this little marquee, right? And it was just like a TASA venue, and it's like, no, that's not a venue. Just did nothing whatsoever to stop the nosebleed. There'd be drunk people who'd sometimes literally fall through the curtain and just fall into the venue during the show. It was absolutely it wasn't a venue the next year, and even that year we were like, this shouldn't be a venue this year. So it was a dreadful Edinburgh venue, but good fun. Do you know what I mean? It's what you kind of. It's better for your first time there. And I've also 1 month I took part in Sean Davis's Best in Class thing, which is where she helps to get working class comedians to the Edinburgh Fringe who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it.
Amazing.
And I couldn't afford it in 2018, so that's what I did that year.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually, it does kind of remind me, I was once hosting a panel. It was at this sci-fi con, and I was doing quite a few interviews with writers and things like that. And they put us in what I'm just going to call, it was a room, but it was sort of basically may as well have been a corridor because it was on the way through to another hall for the bigger stage. And we were upstairs, so noise just traveling up really badly. And then as if that wasn't challenging enough, then Brian Blessed literally came on the downstairs. The man who's known for being loud, like that.
Yeah.
If you want a kind of like an example of someone loud, it's always Brian Blessed your go-to,
Mhm.
and he was what I was working against.
Oh my god, I mean, in a way, could you kind of use that to promote your show? Being like, you might hear Brian Blessed if you come to the show.
I mean, it's part of the same convention, so there wasn't like
Oh,
hey, but if you don't see Brian Blessed, you could kind of hear most of his act over what I'm doing.
yeah, you're like, okay,
So if you
guys,
find me boring,
you're like, I'm just going to stop talking for 20 minutes while Brian rambles on. You can just listen to him. Do you know what I mean?
so I just shout out a few questions at him from upstairs. So Benefit Scum is now. Oh, sorry. Actually, no. Let's go through the Edinburgh stuff first. So you were saying about your previous visits, and as I say, it does look like you've got quite nice digs this time. Have you got any horror stories of the kind of worst ones which you've been at?
I mean, I think the worst one was probably like before I was taking shows up when you were for a weekend, and I think there's one year I was staying with my mate, and he lived in Edinburgh, and he was letting me stay for free. But then one night he had given me the key, but forgot to take the door off the latch, so I just couldn't get in. So I just tried to get in about 11 p.m. He wasn't answering his phone. I couldn't get in, so I just walked around Edinburgh for about 12 hours until he finally woke up.
I'm sensing a theme with you getting locked out. What have people got against you getting to your house?
I don't know. Maybe they're just telling me that I should be a feral child, just living on the streets or something.
Yeah, have you heard of Feral Tom? He haunts the fringe every year.
Some says he eats keys for breakfast.
Yes. And one thing I did notice on your poster for this year's show, which looks absolutely fantastic, is the Daily Mail you quoted as calling you a Tory hating lefty. And by the way, just to put this in for anyone, I do usually try and keep these things fairly apolitical. Sometimes, though, my guest kind of like it might go into some political stuff just because didn't my guest. So if you don't like that, you've been warned. Yeah, so you call a Tory hating lefty by the Daily Mail. I mean, I've got to say, after that, where is there to go with your career? You've already hit the pinnacle as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, the only reason I put that on my poster is because the journalist side of the Daily Mail called me a Tory hating lefty. That's what they called me before the show even went on air. They'd not even heard any of it. And they decided that's what. And then the culture side of the Daily Mail gave me 4 stars because they went, actually, this show's really good and more balanced than we'd expect. So, it's just, I only put it on there because it's fun to see it on the poster to say, Tory hating lefty, 4 stars from the Daily Mail. It's just like as if they're going, yeah, we like this stuff now. It's just a way of trolling the Daily Mail, to be honest. But, I don't really hate people because of their. It's interesting. I don't hate someone because of their political affiliation. I'd say that I have a strong dislike for right wing MPs or even centre right MPs. I think they probably are more interested in themselves than others. I think it's quite a difficult time for people to stand up for them right now. Really, I think you'd be a strong man right now to go. Actually, I think they're doing a great job. So I think it's fair enough to say that. But I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to hate someone based on who they vote for. I think that's how people get divided. And really, it's like if you're if you're chatting to someone on the bus, you don't really chat about who you vote for. You just if you get on with them, you get on with them. So it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, that is really nice about your stuff. So, because you do talk about the situation that we find ourselves in and how we got there, and kind of the progressive governments who've maybe failed us as well. So there is kind of like a balance in your work as well. But it's just the only reason I sort of like brought it up at this stage is like the current government is always going to be the one who's responsible for the current picture which we're in, especially after several years in government. So it's going to come up, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing because sometimes you see, the media kind of go, oh, things like Mock the Week, which just been cancelled. But sometimes they'd say, oh, Mock the Week is very anti-Tory. And I'm like, no, I've watched Mock the Week since 2005, and they've always just been anti-government. They were very anti-Brown and anti-Blair. They've always just been against who's in charge, really. And I think that's a common thing because unless we're all, driving gold-plated cars and living in a lovely, beautiful, financially sound world. We're always going to be mad at who's in charge. So I think that's just natural.
Yeah, I think it's a responsibility of a comedian to point out where things are failing. Well, I mean, it depends on what. There's different types of comedian, obviously, but if you are someone who commentates on the current situation in the world, it's kind of part of that responsibility to talk about what's going wrong, and that's going to land at the feet of whatever government's in power.
Yeah.
Was
I'm not someone who's going to go, oh, I think Keir Starmer will fix it all, because I don't think he will. I think he's probably going to be also a bit useless, but just a bit better than what we've got. But at the same time, as soon as he gets in, I'll be going, yeah, he should be doing better, because that's literally the way these things work.
Yeah, definitely. And was it always something strong in your act to talk about sort of working class issues and issues of kind of people being in benefits, or was that just a something you gravitated towards after a while?
It's something I kind of gravitated towards probably after I did my first solo show in 2017, and it didn't go that well. And I was working part time at Sainsbury's at the time. I just lost like thousands of pounds doing that show. It was a really, really tough month, and I don't think I got anywhere near the career progression you would have wanted from putting that much money into a month. And so when I came back after that, I was a bit more like, well, I want to talk about this stuff because it's had a direct impact on where I am in my life, and it still has had an impact. So it's important for me to talk about that. And B, just like see many other people talking about it, even still now. And I just feel like it can be such a, the whole media can be from such a kind of like middle class perspective. And I think if you've got that perspective of, not having much or having grown up with not much, you should try and fight to get that platform. Because at the moment, I think, like, even during the cost of living crisis, they're like, okay, we've got two people on to chat about the cost of living crisis. And you're like, yeah, they're both MPs and $8,000 a year. Like, how much can they really relate to this? Like,
yeah.
So I think it's just something like, yeah, I want to try and speak about that stuff because it's what I care about, because it affects me and my family. Simple as that.
Yeah, and do you think it's difficult to pick what areas you go into and what's kind of just or how to hewn the comedy out of what is a pretty bloody dire situation we're in at the moment? It's I think it's hard for anyone to say that this isn't a good point in our economy.
No, absolutely. I think it's
I think I'm safe there. I think so. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're not doing great financially.
You're going to get tons of complaints now, mate. Honestly,
yeah. I took a risk.
It's always not easy to talk about these topics, but I'd always rather challenge myself, and I'd always rather challenge my audiences to laugh at it and to face it and to deal with it in whatever way they want to, because I think that's the whole point of art, is that you should challenge yourself. You shouldn't just keep you safe, because anyone can talk about an annoying airline food or whatever the kind of stereotypical stuff people talk about. Anyone can go, oh, here's a story about a really awkward party I was at, and it's like, yeah, we can all do that, mate. But I think if you want to do stuff, for me, I think stuff that's really kind of interesting, you kind of have to dig down a bit deeper and stuff that's a bit more real and a bit more like actual real life and actually stuff that matters. That's just my opinion. That's what I prefer writing about. But also, I do respect there's loads of people who will do a hilarious bit where they pretend to be a pigeon, and I can be the person laughing the most at that. So I think it's not me saying that this is what art should be. It's going, for me, when I make art, this is what I want it to be. But other people can do stuff that's a bit more less risky. Up to them, absolutely fine. But yeah, don't know. Maybe looking at my finances, maybe I should take less risks. Maybe I'll be doing better.
Hey, you've got on radio. That's a wonderful start.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And is there a kind of narrative to this year's show, or is it kind of more just like I get the feeling you're more of a kind of a storytelling comedian than a joke punchline kind of thing?
I'd say it's a bit of both, really, because I'm very happy to, I want there to be a bit of a narrative, a bit of a point, a bit of a through line, but at the same time, I'm always annoyed at myself if there's not regular punchlines. It always has to be punchline, punchline, punchline. There might be some bits that are a bit longer if they're building to a big punchline, but generally I'm not someone who ever wants to take my foot off that punchline pedal for too long. Because I think, as a comedian, frankly, you should be writing as many punchlines as you can. You should always try to make it funnier, always try and squeeze more laughs in there. So I kind of think of myself as a bit of a mix between storytelling, but also, there's plenty of stuff I could do in a club set because it is bang, bang, bang. But there's other stuff. Yeah, big fan over there. There we go.
Yeah. She wants punchlines, punchlines, punchlines. That's what she said.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's what I deliver that.
Willow has spoken. But I mean, I guess it's.
She's literally just probably the reason why after that, as if like, yeah, I'm done, mate. I'm finished.
Yeah. I've said my piece. Let's move on. Because I do enjoy the fact that I think you've got this kind of very conversational style. I think that's why, like, even though there are those solid kind of laughs as we go, it kind of just feels like you're having a conversation with the audience. Was that purposeful kind of thing, or is it just something which developed? Because you do feel very at ease with the audience.
It's kind of something that's just developed, really. I probably wasn't like that early on. I think early on I would have been a bit more awkward, a bit less at ease of it, a bit more like, right, I've just got to tell my jokes and that's it. But it's kind of grown into literally a stage where, like, my favourite bits are the bits where you chat to the audience. I really love that stuff. I really love messing around in the room with the people in the room, because that's what makes it a live show. That's what makes it different from someone reading a script, is that you bounce off people over there, you chat to that person over there, and it makes it a thing in the room for the audience as well as us. That's what we should always strive to do, because that's what is great about stand-up being live, and that's what makes it different from plays and different from other live formats, is that you can interact with the audience, and that's such a big part of the culture. So why would we not try and embrace that?
And how does that go in Edinburgh? Because I get the feeling like when you get the really good audience interaction, it's great. When you get something which is absolutely bat poop, we'll say, for the benefit radio repeat for this, that's kind of can be fun. But like, can that ever be a little bit daunting doing that in Edinburgh? Because Edinburgh kind of audiences don't seem very shy to kind of speak up, shall we say?
It's always quite fun in Edinburgh, to be honest, because I'd say, on the most part, about 80% of the audiences tend to be proper comedy fans. They want that. They want to see, and that's what they've loved watching on, DVDs or telly. So they want to feel like they're in the room and they're part of it. They're proper, comedy nerds who will know people who maybe smaller names. They'll still recognise them and respect them and love their work. So I think generally most Edinburgh audiences are all right with that, but there are also different Edinburgh audiences. There are different Edinburgh. Let's say that sentence again. There are different Edinburgh. Why can't I say Edinburgh? I'm right here. I think I've probably just said it too many times this month.
Yeah, the last time. I think you got it right, and you've just shaken your own confidence.
I did be saying it in the first time, and just start going. They're different.
Edinburgh.
Okay. But there are different Edinburgh audiences, right? And some of them are maybe a bit more touristy, a bit more, people who are just coming up for the weekend or just want a bit of a mainstream comedy and a bit of a night out. And they can be a bit more tricky, because I do think you do occasionally get people in Edinburgh. You either get the proper comedy nerds who love it all, everything from the Goon Show to the Young Ones to the League of Gentlemen, like all the way through. You get those people. But I think you do also get the casual comedy fans who've maybe only seen Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow or Live at the Apollo, and they don't always seem to know how to act in a gig. Like, maybe they might just shout out a bit, or they might not know when to laugh, or they might think it should all be about them, or etc. It can be quite tricky, but I don't really think that's any different to any normal gig, really. You've got the audience in front of them, so
fair play. And you've been up for roughly a week, is that correct, with the show?
Yes, I think today is. I think I got up last Tuesday, so a week tomorrow will be tomorrow will be the week point of me being in Edinburgh.
And you, much like other comedians which I'm friends with on social medias, seem to very much do a wonderful job of helping support each other's shows. So what shows have you been seeing? What are your hot recommends for Edinburgh this year?
My number one recommendation is Sian Davis with her show About Time. That's about her experience of growing up, in her spending her 20s in like austerity Britain, and kind of how that shaped her life and how it made make her take difficult decisions at times and how it affected her and her family. And it's you say it like that and it sounds always go, oh, it's quite heavy, but it's like, no, mainly it's just a proper Scouse working class lesbian woman with some damn good punchlines. That's what she is, and she's just properly funny, and I love her show. It's really good. And I'd also recommend.
If she doesn't use that for her next poster, she's missing a trick. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, hopefully she will. Fingers crossed. And I'd also shout out. I saw Julia Masley's show, and her show's a bit like her show is very different from that. Her show is more about a clowny thing. Like she's from Estonia, and it's more of like a physical comedy show. So very kind of different, but silly, very fun. I'd say maybe go to one and get some really nice, well-structured jokes with some hard-hitting political points, and then go to Julia's show, and you'll get something a bit more silly, a bit more absurd, a bit more, just nonsensical and fun. So it's like really there's shows for whatever you want up here, and they're the two I'd say at the moment are my favourites.
Fantastic. Now, getting on to Benefit Scum. So the second series of the show, and just been a comedy of the week last week. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, man. That's really nice for it to get that accolade. It's that thing where I don't even know who decides it really, but they just tell you. Like my producer just goes, "Oh, a comedy of the week," and I go, "Oh, that's really nice." Like I've no idea how it's decided. I don't really get it, but it's just always like, "Oh, that's really good." It means more people hear it. So.
Yeah, it's Tony Law and a circle of Richard Herring and a few other kind of like establishment comedians with these kind of pointy hats in dark rooms. That's how I heard anyway.
I'd like to imagine so. That would be very nice.
And just by the way, I don't know why I decided they're establishment comedians. They were just the first two which came to my head.
No, but I can imagine both of them wearing big pointy hats, so
you can't you?
It does work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, taking us back, because for anyone who hasn't heard our interview, which we did about a year ago, about Series 1, what was the moment like when you heard you kind of had been commissioned? Did you go and pitch it, or was it something someone approached you about? How do you kind of get a Radio 4 comedy show?
Well, I did my show in 2019. It did really well. It had good reviews. It had a bit of a buzz around it, and it helped really build my profile and my name, and I consistently got like 4-star reviews. So I think it did really well. And then that show, the producer of the Soho Theatre came to see it, and then transferred it to a run at the Soho Theatre, and then that run at the Soho Theatre sold out. And on the third night, a Radio 4 producer came to watch the show, and he got in touch afterwards and said, "Oh, I really loved that show. We should pitch it for a Radio 4 series." And I was like, "Yes, please, that'd be great." So we pitched it off the back of that, and then all these things take such a long time. That's the thing I think people need to always remember. Like, literally did the Edinburgh show in August 2019, then the Soho run was January 2020, and then we pitched it in April 2020, and then it went out in March 2021. So all these things take a long time, but that's basically how it came about.
In 2019, we're going, it's like, well, look, I'll try to get a Radio 4 show in, but I don't think I'll have enough time over the next couple of years. Oh, the schedule seems to have cleared up. Don't know what happened.
Yeah, I mean, that really helped. Do you know what I mean? That's I was going, finally some time off. Yeah, it was a weird time, but it was kind of really, I mean, for my mental health and for my general well-being, I think it was really useful for me to have the Radio 4 show to focus on during the lockdowns and during that horrible time we all had when we had no gig, because it meant, okay, I've got something to write, something to work towards, something to think about, because otherwise I'd probably just, end up doing weird drawings like that blue man on the wall.
Plus, I'm sure you're a less vain man than me, but I can't imagine it hurt your ego to see like your name on the front of a radio show. That's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, it's the thing that as a teenager, it's the thing that I grew up going, oh, it'd be a dream come true to have that. It'd be a dream come true to have my own. My own one-off episode would have been a dream come true. I had half an hour on the radio. It'd be like, that's amazing. That's incredible. I've always wanted since I first fell in love with comedy. So to have had 2 series now is it doesn't always. Sometimes you forget that it's real.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, damn, yeah, we did that, and it's just like, just makes you feel a bit happy inside. So yeah.
And it's also it's Radio 4. That's the home of, I'm sorry I haven't a clue, of Just a Minute, of a bit more today, The Unbelievable Truth. These kind of like amazing radio shows which are just part of the firmament. To be in that lineup must just be amazing.
Yeah, it's genuinely, it's the kind of thing that you still, even still now, when I see that, like I see, something like Comedy of the Week, and you go like, oh, they're Just a Minute, and then a few weeks later they've got my show or whatever it is, and you're just like, that makes no sense. Why is my show there? You just kind of have to pinch yourself, because in your head you're like, I don't know how that's happened, but it's really lovely, it's really nice, and it's something you have to keep remembering whenever you have a tough audience or a tricky gig. You're like, no, I've always got that in my back pocket now. So if I do a tricky gig tonight and someone goes, I didn't think you were that funny, it's like, well, I've got this in my back pocket, so I'm not going to quit comedy because I've got something going for me. So you just have to always cling on to those successes and help them push you forward.
And for anyone who hasn't heard the show yet, what's the kind of elevator pitch kind of thing for Benefit Scum?
I'd say it is a millennial left-wing working class comedian talking about his life, his family, and politics with a small p. Because I always think if you say politics, people expect you to do a 20-minute tirade about Boris Johnson, whereas really, I very rarely talk about the actual ins and outs of Westminster. I don't care about it really. That's all a distraction. I'll talk about the political issues. I'll talk about the benefit system. I'll talk about DWP. I'll talk about, the need for. I'm not going to waste time talking about everything that's wrong with Boris Johnson, because really that's just a smokescreen. That's the real issues that have been prominent long before he was Prime Minister, and frankly, they've been prominent since we had Tony Blair in charge. Do you know what I mean? That we don't ever, an ex-Prime Minister like Tony Blair who has like a housing portfolio that's worth about £20 million. It's like, okay, so he probably didn't help the housing situation, did he? Do you know what I mean? So it's
yeah, he brought them all.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not going to be the one saying we should have affordable housing, because he's going, no, I'm doing all right, thanks, mate.
I did want to talk about a few of the changes which have happened between series 1 and series 2. Mm-hmm. So we've mentioned about the fact that the first series was recorded during the pandemic.
We're not American. It's not season. It's series.
No, I don't know why I went all American there. I've been watching too much Netflix. What can I say? So for the first series, you had to record it remotely in front of a remote audience as opposed to in person. How difficult is that? Because it's such an important part of comedy is vibing off the audience.
It was a bit weird, yeah. It was kind of, I think it was good because it came after, we'd had about pretty much like, at that point, maybe we'd had about 9 or 10 months of the past, a bit used to that situation. It wasn't like, here's your first audience, it's on Radio 4, good luck. I was a bit like doing a virtual gig, a bit used to the idea of, okay, you can't interact in the same way you would in real life, and you can just kind of hear them. You can't see any of their faces. You can just hear them. And so I was a bit more used to that after that period. But it was tricky, and it was really nerve-wracking, because you're like, okay, this is supposed to be my big stand-up break. It's supposed to be the biggest stand-up comedy but I've got to do it in a situation that is entirely alien to what I'm used to. So it was really nerve-wracking before doing that, because I was like, I remember there were times I was getting a bit upset and a bit stressed, because I was like, it's not how I dreamt it. Do you know what I mean? You dream the actual comedy club or the radio theatre or somewhere where it's a normal gig, and in my head I was like, what if it doesn't work? What if we do is just awkward and horrible, and that's my career done? Do you know what I mean? You kind of have this fear that, oh, that doesn't work. It still has to go out, and people are just going to go, what was that? But luckily, it was really nice, and the audience were really lovely, and I think it helped in a way, to be honest, for that series, because we had audiences from all over the world. We had people from all over the world, all over the country, people in Manchester or Glasgow or Edinburgh or Northern Ireland or Wales, whatever, and it meant that the audience for that show came to that Zoom recording. It wasn't just like people who want to go to any Radio 4 recordings, they go to anyone they can in London. It was like, no, we've got the audience for this show who've signed up for it and come to this recording. So they were properly on board with it all, and they were bloody lovely. I mean, it's that mad thing where it's probably one of the best, if not the best audiences I've ever had for any of my shows, and it was a virtual show. And, I didn't expect to be saying that, but so on board with it, and they were behind it. So, luckily that worked out really well. And then this second series was at the Frog and Bucket in Manchester, so it was a real awesome, and I could bounce off them a bit more. And I do think when you listen to the two series, it gives the second series a bit of a different energy, because you can tell it's in a room, it's in a venue, it's an actual club. It has got a different vibe to it. But I mean, I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. I think it means that each series has its own place and its own merits and its own different feel, and I think there's just something to be said for that. I think doing that is better than doing the same thing over and over. I mean, it's free. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to try, and I'm going to hope maybe there's like a slightly different event that means I have to like do it in a shed or something. I don't know what's going to make it happen like that, but
first Radio 4 sitcom to come from the moon. But yeah,
I'll happily do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be a winner. But I did feel like it's like the first series felt like it was a bit more structured around the theme of like the Benefit Scum thing in the title seemed very at the heart of it. There were kind of skits at the beginning of it, which were at the Benefit office as it was set, and where you bump into comedian. I love that kind of thing. And by the way, just one of my favorite things is like, oh, it's comedian Darren Harriott. What are you doing here? I love that. There's nothing more fun. But yeah, it seems like in the second series you have more opted to get it more kind of like story based, almost like it's more about these stories from your life where these bits of the reality of being working class and being, having been on benefits over the years seems to take root. Was that something you wanted to do more in the second series, or just something that happened?
No, that's definitely what I wanted to do. I thought the first series was very much focused on, as you said, things like the job centre and the DWP and the very horrible bureaucratic way those places are run. And then I thought the second series, I wanted it to be more about, these are the experiences of people who are on benefits or who are working class in their day-to-day lives. Because, I think the first series was going like, this is the reality for people on benefits. And then the second series was, these are the stories of people on benefits, because we're more than just benefit claimants. We're people who go on holidays. We're people who love football. We're people who, could be LGBT, or we're people with dreams and ambitions. Do you know what I mean? We're more than just people who sign on. So I guess, the point of the second series was to go, it's still from that perspective, because that's always going to be my perspective. But at the same time, it was me going, we do more than just go to the job centre.
Yeah. I mean, both seem very kind of legitimate ways of doing it. But I did love the fact that in the second series you did choose to go just more from people's experiences. The themes come out from the title of the show by the kind of choice of guests and things like that.
Oh, sorry, you cut out a bit. What did you say for that bit?
I was just saying that, I think they're both kind of valid choices of ways of kind of going about the show, but it was really kind of nice, the warmth to come out of just choosing guests who have come from a kind of less affluent background and having those conversations with them. It just felt so such a warm way of doing it. And even your bits in front of the audience seem more storytelling than based on, hey, here's a problem and let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I think I wanted it to have a different vibe and a different feel. I just think, you know, there's a different, when you're talking about a theme, it's very different to when you're talking about an issue, I suppose. So that kind of naturally is how it would come out a bit differently. And you know, I think the main thing we wanted to do for the second series is, you know, there still were bits that were serious and were heavy, but at the same time, I wanted to playful and silly as well. Because you know, I speak about it with my partner a lot because she directs my shows, and she always goes like, there is that kind of frustrated, angry, political side to you, but there's also that ridiculous, silly side to you, like, you know, the side where I'm playing with my nephews, or the side where I'm just messing around singing a song around the house. And I think, you know, I don't necessarily ever want to get stuck as, oh, he's the guy who's always, you know, the angry political guy, because I'm like, well, there's other bits to me as well, and it's just that this is the main driving point at the moment because of the world we're in and the situation I'm in. But in 5 years, I could do a ridiculous show about, you know, how much I love Pokemon. I don't really know. Anything could happen. Like you know, I think a lot of the time things in terms of, you know, being a comedian or being someone in any entertainment industry, they try and you have to put yourself in a box kind of to market yourself. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but there's always far more to people than you ever see when you look at those boxes, because we're all far more complex, deep human beings. And I'm not someone who ever to get stuck in the same thing. Like I don't. I'm more, you know, in terms of comedian, I'd rather be like someone like David Bowie as a musician is. Do you know what I mean? Someone who can do so many different vibes or styles or whatever. I'm more artistically, that interests me far more than just going like, I want to do, you know, Backstreet Boys and do the same love songs for 20 years. I don't see the point of that. So,
I did enjoy the fact of you talking about all these different subjects, like, yeah, as you say, holidays, football, sexuality, and gender, and all these kind of different issues. And I think it just really makes it hit home how kind of issues around kind of poverty and food insecurity and all these kind of things just bleed into every aspect. Was that something you wanted to kind of showcase to people?
yeah, definitely. Well, that's definitely something I wanted to do, both with my Radio 4 stuff and with my show at Edinburgh this year, because I think, you know, people talk about these issues and they think it's just, you know, just something like, oh, that just means that, you know, occasionally you not get school lunch, or, oh, that just means that occasionally someone can't afford to go out. And it's like, no, mate, this stuff affects literally every your life, and it's always in your brain and on your mind. It affects, you know, your dating life. It affects your family life. It affects your life with your film. It affects your job. It affects your work, especially in the entertainment industry. It can affect how many people know about your work. It can affect so many different aspects. And I think it's really important to make that link and say, like, yeah, if someone's on benefits, it's not just someone who goes, oh, I've not got a job, so you know, I don't have much money. It's someone who can't enjoy simple pleasures like going out for a meal or seeing football
Yes.
or going on a date or whatever. It affects all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is when there's some sort of onus of blame or laziness or anything which is applied to people who just in financial hard times, which, Jesus, more than ever, we have to realize can hit anyone. Like, you
Mm.
know, everyone's going through a very hard time at the moment. It's just, you know, I think it was Bill Hicks which said it's like all you need is the right friends, the right bar, and the right alleyway, and you too can be homeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's I mean, it's thoroughly depressing how much of that stuff's still relevant nowadays, isn't it? Like,
Yes. Well, they sort of come round.
yeah,
And the format. So it's a 15-minute show, and I'm always really impressed by how much you do fit into the 15-minute format.
Mm.
But it must be so difficult because you've got an interview segment as well there with a different comedian every week or a family member or something like this. How, it must be really difficult to edit it down to that 15 minutes.
It is really difficult, especially I mean, this series, like when we interviewed my mum, I was chatting to my producer Ben, and he was saying, "I've no idea how we're going to cut this down because we I chatted for about 45 minutes, and she said so many different things, and it's like, oh, it could be a 3-minute funny conversation, or a 3-minute heartstrings conversation, or a 3-minute mix of both, or a 3-minute kind of philosophical. There were so many different ways we could have had that interview in the episode, and we had to cut out some really good bits. And it's the same with the stand-up. The stand-up, you have about 10 minutes of stand-up per episode, and I think we recorded about 25 minutes per episode. So there's whole episodes that are on the cut that weren't used, and it's frustrating for me sometimes because I listen to it and I go, "Oh, you cut out that topper that I really liked," or "You cut out that throwaway line that I really enjoyed." You have to do that because otherwise it wouldn't all fit in. It's just the deal we've got, and it is very tricky. But luckily, my producer Ben, that's his job. So
I mean, all I'm saying is I don't know who we have to have a word with here, but it's like, look, we've named a lot of the amazing successes on Channel 4, but I've had some of the sitcoms they've had on Radio 4, funnily, not Channel 4. I've had some of the sitcoms they've had on there before. That, if they're going to put those on, I think they could give you half an hour. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to single anyone out. I'm just saying the bar for sitcoms, certainly on radio, seems to be a little lower than on TV in some cases. And there's a lot of trial and error behind all the wonderful successes on BBC Radio 4. But it's like, if they can do that, half an hour for Series 3. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, if you want to start a petition, mate, I'll happily. I'd be more than happy to. I mean, because I love Radio 4 and I love the radio. I've been a big fan of since I was a teenager, and I think it's such a proper, lovely thing to work on, the radio, because if I was trying to do any of that stuff on telly, there'd be so many different management people or producers or people higher up who would go, "Oh, we're not sure about that," or "Should we say that?" or "Could we change that?" Whereas radio, you're kind of a lot more free just to present what you've done, and then the compliance people look over it, and as long as you're not saying anything illegal, you're pretty fine to say it as long as it's funny. So it's a real freedom that you don't get with telly, and I think that's something that needs to be that should be celebrated more, really, because there's nothing like that on telly, especially in terms of stand-up, and the odds of anything like that being on telly in terms of stand-up nowadays is probably smaller than it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, I joke obviously about the sitcoms on Radio 4. There's some wonderful ones, but it's I think actually that's part of the strength is they are willing to kind of like take a punt and experiment and kind of like, oh, this is something, let's give this a try, which is just absolutely wonderful about the radio format, which I think TV doesn't have so much these days.
Yeah.
So getting back to yourself though. So then you've kind of got the show going out at the moment. So you're on episode 5. Is it coming up this week or is it 6? Where are we in the series?
No, it's finished, mate. It's episode 4.
Is it finished?
Yeah.
Wow, man. It passes so quickly. See, this is the 15 minutes. We need more.
It does. It just goes by, man. We only got 4 episodes per series, but it's gone. But I mean, I could have done episode 5. Let's start the petition, see how it goes.
Yes. Apparently, I'm working as your agent tonight, so.
Hey, why not? You may as well. It's worth a go. But yeah.
So like now, I guess you're kind of in the wait to hear about series 3. How long does that take?
I'm not too sure, really. It seems to change each time we come round to it. But I need to have a chat to the people at Radio 4 and chat to my producer and see what they say, and hopefully they'll be interested, and there'll be something else that I'd love to do another series or something different if they want me to do something different. I've always got so many ideas in my brain that it's just like, I could do 4 different shows for you guys if you. I'm always just like, they're like, "No, it's fine. We'll just do one." I'm like, "Mate, I could do a million shows."
I mean, now that you've kind of finished the second series, which, by the way, for anyone who hasn't got it yet, it's all on BBC Sounds right now. Check it out. As I say, like it needs to be longer as I'm going to proselytize, but at 15 minutes, an hour, and you watch the series, like or listen to the series. Pardon me. Come on, can't say fairer. After having finished the series, is there anything which you kind of would like to see or like to do to kind of go forward into the third series?
I'm not too sure, really. I think, there's every chance if we get a third more going back to probably a bit more like series one and more about the cost of living crisis and different aspects of that, because I think it's such an important thing to talk about. And I always feel just if you're going to give me that platform, then I owe it to everyone who's struggling with that stuff. Like I'm struggling with it as well, and I think I should be talking about it. If I'm given that platform, I should be going, let's talk about the cost of living crisis. Let's talk about reality of this stuff, because it's so rare that someone who is from my background does get that platform. Well, I want to talk about it. If you give me the platform, I'm going to try and at the very least make people feel a bit less alone, because that's the main thing. I think when people are dealing with financial insecurity, it can be a very and troublesome
Yeah.
place to be. And so I think it's so important to have people talking about it wherever they are and just going like, mate, there's plenty of us in this situation. You're not alone. Just reach out for help if you need it. And we've got to try and stick together. So I think it will be more about that kind of stuff if I get a third series. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends what they say. They might go, no, this series we want you to talk about the the history of the working class in Chile or something. I have no idea, mate, But I think it will probably be more about that kind of stuff.
I'm looking forward to the history of the Chilean finance problems. By the way, a very important point there. If anyone's watching or listening or consuming this in any manner, if you're struggling, if times are tough, do reach out to help, do reach out to friends, reach out to charities. There's lots of charities which not only work with people who are struggling financially, but people with mental health, which can be rife when you're struggling for money. So please do reach out to someone if you're in that situation at the moment. And I would like to thank you, sir, because I do, I was lucky enough to come from a fairly good background financially, but I did hit financial hardship during my adulthood, and just have this spoken without the stigma, and to so lightly manage to kind of address the issues head on, but also make people not feel so like one dimensional. It's like it is like we people have real lives and go out and do things. We just struggle with money. It's not an
Yeah.
alien race or anything. And I don't think that's talked about enough at the moment. I think we kind of had a bit of a boom about talking about this stuff during the 80s, and it kind of just went away and never really came back. So it's
Well,
nice to have someone.
I feel like it might come back over the next few months. I feel like there's no option but for people to be shouting about it and screaming about it, because the fact they keep 3 months going, we're going to have a record loss in incomes or whatever. It's like it's going to break at some point, I think. So I do think it's going to come back, and I think having people talk about stuff like unions and strikes at the moment a lot more is important, and people talking more about how mad it is that literally we can see these energy companies making absurd profits while we're struggling to pay our bills, and you're like, well, logically that's evil. There's no other word for it. Cause a balloon to burst, and people will something will happen. I don't know what. No one knows what, but we just gotta be annoying for as long as we can.
And so say we all. And by the way, I also found out through your latest series that we're both children of Boots, because your mum worked there, and my dad used to manage a Boots before he brought his own shop. And actually, funny, in a full circle kind of thing, when he retired, he ended up doing locum work for Boots. So,
Oh, really? What boots did he manage?
it was Romsey branch.
Oh.
Before he ended up buying a place there. Yeah, just a random little fact there. By the way, other chems are available. just for the benefit of the radio.
They are.
So,
But can you spend your advantage points at those other chemists? No, you can't.
and also, I say other chems are available for now. I think Boots are working on it. Do you know the funny thing was? Sorry, it's just random anecdote. But when my dad retired, he sold when he was selling his chemist, he wanted to sell it to an independent. Even was prepared to come down a bit on price, but unfortunately, just no one could afford it at the time. So he sold it to a small chain, which I think was called Moss. Then Advantage or Vance or something or other brought out Moss, so they became Moss Alliance, I think it was. And then Boots bought them out.
Wow,
So eventually, anything will become a Boots.
Yeah, I think so. They'll take over the world.
Dad was like, "Look, I tried to sell to an, even like a small chain, but that
I
didn't work."
do the right thing. Do you know what I mean?
So you're at the beginning of the Edinburgh run at the moment. So is it how long you're up there for, and what is your recipe for keeping sane during a long Edinburgh run?
I mean, I don't think I am saying I'd be lying if I thought I was, but
I was going to say that just
I'm
for the
up here
benefit of the radio,
for
there was this spared
25.
look which came on on Tom's face when I asked that.
Just yeah, I'm up here for 25 days. My main tactic for staying sane is make sure you chat to your mates and your friends up here because it can feel like a weird, lonely, and stressful place in Edinburgh. But then there's always going to be your friends here and your mates, and if you chat to them, they can take you out of it a bit, and you're like, oh no, actually, after this month, we're all still going to be here. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a very stressful month, and it does always feel like this month is like life or death, or the making or breaking of you, and it can. I mean, it can make people, it can break people, obviously, but I think you just need to make sure you hold on to people who aren't who aren't the comedy agents and producers, the normal people who are your mates, or even the people who are producers who are also your mates. Do you know what I mean? Those people, because really, you can spend so much time worrying about people you don't know, but if you just focus on the ones you do know, who you do like, then you keep each other sane, I think.
Oh, that's lovely. And what's next after Edinburgh? I'm sure you don't even want to think about anything after Edinburgh at the moment, but is there a tour next?
No,
What's
there's
up next for
nothing
Tom?
after Edinburgh. There's nothing after Edinburgh.
There is no reality after Edinburgh.
No, the world's going to explode. There's going to be nothing left.
I mean, that's always possible the way we're carrying on as a species, but that's another story.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, you don't know who you're cheering for at this stage, humanity
Yeah.
or oblivion. Anyway, so if you just want to
If
give
the planet did implode, I'd be like,
no, go on.
oh, sorry.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, if the planet did implode, if the planet were to implode, I think my last words would be like, "Oh, fair point, mate." Like,
As the alien laser beam comes towards, like,
yeah.
no, you got a point. Yeah. So before we wrap things up, so give us some plugs. So of course we've got, as I say, the radio show is on BBC Sounds at the moment. Just finished that series. It's just series 2, unfortunately, which is available, but keep on BBC Sounds. Series 1 will come around. So if you follow the show, it tells you when they come up, which is wonderful. But you're at the Strand.
Get people. So I think it probably helps if you follow the show to make them know that people like it. So just do that anyway.
Yes, please do. And you're on the Strand 2, is that correct?
The Stand 2, yes.
Plug the show, what time it's on, and all those kind of good things.
It is at 9:20 p.m. every night of the Fringe, apart from my day off on the 15th, I think it is. And yeah, 9:20. Tickets are a tenner, or if you can't afford tickets, literally just send me a DM and I'll get you in. Like I'm not precious about that. I'm like, mate, if you got the money, I'll get you in. I'm not going to be funny. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, please do see it. I'm really proud of it, and it'd be nice for it to. You just make something you want people to see it. Really, that's all Edinburgh is. That you make something, you put it on, and if people are there, then you're successful. Really, like I try not to worry about the other stuff about it. I just want people to watch the show. That's it. So if you fancy seeing it, that'd be great. All details are on my social media, Facebook, YouTube, all that nonsense.
Fantastic. And have an absolutely wonderful run. And more importantly, enjoy your well-earned day off on the 15th.
I can't bloody wait, mate. I'm already looking forward to it. Like,
and just before I end the stream, guys, just to give a quick shout out, I'm slowly starting to put together Squee Fest, which is my yearly 24-hour marathon where I go live on the interwebs with different guests and things joining me. I'm currently trying to sort out the lineup, but the charity this year is Shelter, which is very apropos of what we're talking about with people struggling at the moment. So please stay tuned to the Dr. Squee Show for more details as we get them. But Tom, thank you so much for joining us again.
that's all right, mate. It's always an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I'll join you in another year for Series 3 to talk about that.
All right, I'll chat to you then, mate.
Cheers, mate. I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And please remember, in a world where you can be literally anything, please be kind.